180 days. Districts here in West Michigan say while they have definitely faced a number of challenges due to the pandemic, they believe there are better ways to address the needs of students who have fallen behind. A school year made long by the pandemic could be even longer next year.
Students and staff need more days.
This is State Superintendent Dr. Michael Rice asks the legislature to add a
Weird. Hey, how are you? I'm good. You're muted.
Every time.
I know you've never done this before. I can do that all the time.
You ready?
I think. Are you?
I think.
I know, it's so weird. I do this all the time. Michelle just left to go to the store. I'm like, I'm actually nervous. I don't know why. I don't usually get nervous for stuff, but
I went to the Wayland house just so I could like not have any dogs or any distractions or doorbells. I was nervous too. Like, you don't normally talk about this stuff in front of crowds, so.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of partly it. That's not my base of information.
Mhm. Who's Carl Smith?
I don't know. I think he just jumped on early.
Oh, nice. Hi, Carl Smith.
Did you have any trouble getting in?
No. The only weird thing that I've never had happen before was it like required I had to put my name and email address like to sign in, which was I've never had that happen before.
Huh.
I don't know what that was, but whatever.
I wonder if that's stored anywhere. I'd love to have the contact information of the people that are here, but I didn't know that it was set up to do that.
Oh, well, maybe it is.
Huh, maybe.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people signed up for this today?
So,
Yeah, I did.
I don't know. He just unmuted. Carl, if you can hear me, I muted you because there's a lot going on over there. So it looks like we've got two. I created an Eventbrite event and then shared it on Facebook. So I've got two different lists.
Okay.
So
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
there's 22 people registered through, or 23 registered through Eventbrite, and 18 that said on Facebook they're going. So I'm not sure how many
That overlaps.
overlap, but so we should have at least mid 20. So that's
Great.
yeah, good group.
Good. I'm hoping that his name is Matt Rose. I don't know. Did I talk to you about him?
Is he the one from Wayland?
No, that is Kyle. And I never did hear back if he's attending, but Matt Rose, I think, is attending, and he's trying to take a really old church and they're going to shut it down and then relaunch micro churches.
Oh, wow.
In Grand Rapids. And so I talked to him on the phone for like an hour the other day, invited him into this to give him support and information. So hopefully he jumps on.
Cool. That's great.
He doesn't have, like, I can't find him on social media, so I don't know. I sent him all the information via email, so I couldn't tell if he was on or not. So.
Okay. Hi, Carl.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Oh,
Hi, how are you?
good. How are you?
I'm just well.
Good.
So we're not starting till 1. You know that, Carl?
Yes.
All right. So we're just kind of catching up, just so if you're like, I don't know what's going on. No.
No. I kind of gathered that by the conversation.
Yeah.
I have the same problem when I do my meetings other places. So
Yeah. Where are you, Carl?
I'm in Muskegon,
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
and I know you're going to have a Wally Della Fluanti. He's a pastor in Grand Haven. He's going to meet with you too.
Yeah. I think I've met Wally.
Yeah, he's an awful nice guy.
Yeah. Cool. Well, good. I'm glad you're here.
So I'll let you guys go. I'm going to just mute myself for a minute and watch the weather.
All right. Yeah, it's coming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Carl.
Good. Thanks. So So, so what, I'm guessing like when at 1 o'clock, you'll just start welcoming people.
Yeah.
And then we'll give them a few minutes. Then how are you seeing your time going?
I figured just, welcome everyone. And just kind of give a quick overview of how the hour's gonna go. I'll talk for a little bit, then Roger will talk, and then Tom and John will talk at the end. And then I'm just gonna, just offer up a little bit of my story, why I'm so passionate about Fresh Expressions and the journey that I've been on with it. And then I'm just kind of hand it off to you and let you do your thing, and then you can hand it off to Tom and John. I texted Tom last night and I was like, we totally forgot to talk about what you're going to talk about. What are you talking about? And
He's remember it was today.
he did. Because I was like, that's tomorrow at 1. Just but no, I know John and I talked about it extensively and we've got a plan figured out. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to trust you.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Oh, he's never let me down. So but I had this weird moment of like, oh my gosh, what if he doesn't come on? That would be terrible. So
just have more Q&A time.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that if that
Good.
seems all right with you.
Great. Yep.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So trying to think of what else. I'm kind of wrapping up. I'm going to put in the chat box. I've got a link to the how to get started book. It's a PDF file that's so everybody has that. It's like, I don't know, like 16 pages or something, but I think it might be a good next read for them. And then I'm kind of wrapping up my time with like I'm going to tell a little bit of our story, but just kind of in the context of we were doing all of these really good things that seemed really great, but nobody was coming to Jesus. And that's kind of supposed to be the point. And so that's how we arrived at this point. Like, because I think we were doing all the right things, and everybody was like, oh yeah, boy, they're Bridge, they're really doing great stuff. But like, nothing, like nobody was getting saved.
Right.
So it's because we were trying to get them to come to church rather than us taking church to them. But then, so I'm sharing some of those statistics of the things that really hit me. And then the last thing, I'm just going to kind of wrap up saying that we want this to be an ongoing thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, you know what? We talked about setting a date for the next meeting. What did we put it down?
We landed on a date though.
Hey, John.
Hi, John.
He's connecting to audio.
Yep.
So, I mean, we could shoot for like a month from now, March 4th.
That's my birthday.
Is it? No, do we not want to do it on your birthday?
I don't care. I mean, I have nothing else going on. So. Sure.
I got nothing going on. All right, so
6. That's all.
If that works for you?
Yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm.
And we'll have to figure out what we're doing to fill that time.
They don't need to know that part. Just, hey, our next agenda date is March
4th, where we'll continue this discussion. Hi, John.
Hello.
Hey, there he is.
Sorry, I was having some issues trying to get on the link. I tried to get on through Eventbrite. It didn't give me the join now button.
Oh, it didn't?
No.
It's weird.
I found a different email, but anyway.
Good
to see you guys.
Clears itself up. Yeah. Good to see you too. Just making a note.
We communicated by email, Rachel, but I don't think we've met officially, so it's very good to meet you.
I feel like I maybe met you at a Class S meeting a few years ago. A lot, like maybe 3 years ago. I don't know. But no, I don't think we've actually formally been introduced. So I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
So Rachel, you know Lisa DeKreiger.
I do, yeah.
My co-planner. John is Lisa's brother. One of Lisa's brothers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
And Dan will be on here as well today, and Lisa will. She said it's the only way she gets to see her brother.
Family affair. I did not realize that. That's really interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
So Lisa has a golden retriever who is the same age as our golden retriever, and so they're like pseudo siblings, and so they're kind of like learning together, and it's this, picture journey on Facebook. that we
Right.
have together.
Because he's so
I see a
cute.
lot of pictures of that dog.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah, he got so big.
Especially yesterday, was it National Dogs Day? I think her.
National Golden Retriever Day. Mhm.
Oh, really?
Golden, not just dogs. It was retrievers.
Specific. And I didn't realize that until about 9 o'clock last night. And so I looked over at Sunny, my golden retriever, and I was like, sorry.
Maybe next year.
It's like my birthday. Nobody cares about my birthday either, so just, it's fine. I love you regardless.
I also heard late last night that yesterday was National Carrot Cake Day, which I'm pretty bummed that I missed out on National Carrot Cake because I love carrot cake.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Well, we should celebrate somehow. Maybe on Saturday we should all go get carrot cake and then just cheers each other, send a picture of it. Sounds good.
So Jen, I heard that you and Tom talked about what you're going to be talking about today. Are you guys going to tag team it, or is it just
So Tom, when Tom and I talked, he said, "Hey, why don't you just plan on sharing about the 3 different lanes of planting, and just kind of talk about that from a denominational and a classes kind of perspective." But and then I think he was going to talk about just the conversations that we're having about, hey, we'd love to have a hub for this region where support can happen for fresh expressions of church, and that's something that I mean, you've been in conversation, I know, Rachel, with Tom about that for a while, and going to training and stuff. So he's going to speak to that, I believe. So very, very brief and really, looking for you guys to share the things that you really have on your heart and mind to share. So does that make sense? Is there anything more you want from us?
No, from my perspective, that's great because I'll be sharing about that journey of being a part of that cohort and learning that hubs are essential for fresh expressions to really flourish, to have relationship with people. So, yep.
That's great. And so we all know, we're going to have some pros in the audience, right? We're going to have people in full-time ministry, but we're also going to have some lay folks.
Yep.
So just so we know when we're throwing out
Language.
jargon stuff that
Got it.
might have to kind of give them a little help. So.
Do you have like a definition of fresh expressions? Do they have like a?
Yeah, I've got it. It's about being committed to being the church differently, primarily for the benefit of those who are not yet part of the church. That's the definition.
So that's essentially what my thesis is that I'm working on, and these are the books that I have so far that I've pulled today.
Oh my gosh!
It's literally the thesis, so that's exciting.
Just take me off the sharing list. I'm not worthy.
No, that's not true. I'm not either. I'm learning. I'm gathering this information and. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, for me, I don't have a lot of knowledge about it. We did visit Tampa Underground, but in terms of, I haven't done a ton of reading, and I'm excited about it. But certainly, you guys have more of the internal know about it than I do.
Well, it's all just smoke and mirrors for me.
Not true either, Roger.
I'm just like, I'm a parrot. I just repeat the things that I hear with no comprehension of what I'm saying.
And then the reality is, like, I've tried it, and things haven't worked great either. So like we're all learning together. We're all just gathering data and trying things and failing at some of it and trying again. Like that I feel like is the best way to go after it.
I agree.
Trying. Carl, what's the weather like over in Muskegon?
Sun's trying to peek out of the clouds and it's gonna snow.
Yeah, there's no sun here. It's just
Yeah,
doom and gloom.
yeah.
Well, the sap is running out of the maple trees. I've gathered sap the last 2 days, but
Really?
it's gonna quit here real soon.
Yeah. Do you have a sugar shack?
Well, kind of, sort of. I do it right here in the garage. I get about 2 gallons a year out of the trees here.
Nice. That's cool.
So we're moving to some acreage that has quite a few maple trees. So I've been toying with, is that something I want to try or not? It feels like it might be a lot of work.
It's a commitment.
You're not afraid of work, though. I can tell that already.
True.
So you'd be fine. It is time consuming,
Yeah,
but the outcome is well worth it.
it's delicious. I mean, I only eat pure maple syrup. So
You cook with it too. It makes a better choice when you do it that way.
yep, I do actually cook with it as well most of the time.
And if the kids like candy, you can always boil it down till it hardens up and break it up for candy.
Nice.
So there's always ways to go with it.
It doesn't have candy.
Lots of uses.
Rachel, I hadn't thought about it. Do we want to? Do we think we have time to let people just say who they are and where they're from, kind of thing? Are you
I
going to
think
do that?
Might be a good idea if we're going to be in community together.
Yeah.
I think it might be a good idea to just say your name and where you're from or something quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Luann,
Hello.
how are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm glad you made it on.
At 1 o'clock.
Yeah, we had some weird thing happening with Luann when she was pulling it up on her iPad, the event on Facebook. Our splash ad said 1 p.m., but then underneath it, Facebook was saying 2 p.m. And I'm like, why is that? And so I went on my phone and on my computer, and it was 1 p.m. And we were sharing our screenshots back and forth of what we were seeing. I'm still not sure why. So I sent out a couple of things today saying 1 o'clock today. So I hope everybody got the message.
I don't know. Sometimes Facebook does wonky things.
It does.
Hi, Sarah. I know you're not technically there, but I'm just saying hello because I know you're there.
Oh, I'm here. I'm multitasking until we start.
Sounds good. Well, I'm glad you made it.
Sarah, this is 2 times in 2 days.
I know, right? It's a hashtag blast. I mean that too.
Yeah, it's not facetious.
Being at home, me and my dogs all the time I love them, but actually seeing people is kind of fun too.
Yeah.
I have been working from home 99% of the time. And a couple days ago, I went to Fairhaven to do some work, and I was walking down the hall with Tom Ellenboss, and then 2 other employees started walking in the hall that I love very dearly. And it was this moment of like, oh, my people. They do exist.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a good day. Yep. Hi, Drew. Hi, Marcus.
Hi.
Hello, it's Marcos.
Adrian's here too.
Oh, hi.
Hello, this is Adrian. How are you? I'm from Mississauga, Toronto, Canada, Toronto.
Awesome.
area.
Hello. Hello.
We love Canada.
Yeah, and Marcos Lucchesi is an elder in our church, and he's attending as well.
Awesome.
That's right.
So glad you're here. Matt Rose, you're here. You made
Hey.
it.
Made it.
All
Hi.
right. I'm so glad. Yakub,
No. Hey, stop.
Tom, you're here.
Tom, I didn't even hardly recognize you with your beard, man.
What's
I'm trying to catch up to you, Roger. I've had beard envy of you for a long time, and so I'm chasing you.
Come on in, the water's fine.
oh boy. Oh boy.
Rachel's kind of sick of beard talk. We've been talking about men's facial hair around Harbor the last couple weeks, and she's done with it. But
Pretty much. Yeah. But hey, then there's Chris Hall, who outdoes all of you. So
Did
someone say beard?
beard game strong in Chris.
He's the king. We bow down to him.
I won't deny that, Roger.
Mine will never, I cannot grow my beard that long. It's like it gets to this point and then goes,
Oh, yeah.
it's no good.
It looks like a Noah beard to me.
Oh, boy. Hi, Jeff. Glad to have you here.
Jeff Bootberg. Hi, Yakub. Am I saying
Why,
that right? Yakub?
Hi, hello everyone.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I am writing everyone's name down so we can go and introduce ourselves in just a couple minutes.
So good at this.
I do that Hope Unexpected call every Monday night, and there's between 20 and 30 women, and we have to go through each one. So I've learned that's the way to do it. Otherwise, it's just mass chaos. Yep. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Sue.
Hello.
Glad you're here today.
Yeah. Sue Johnson. Is that my Sue Johnson?
It is.
Hi.
How are ya?
Good. There you are. Good to see you.
Yeah.
I haven't seen your face in like forever.
I've just been here in my basement for the last year.
That's how I feel, Sue. You're in my basement. No one knows I exist.
Oh, they find me. Trust me.
Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad people find you. Misuk, is that how you pronounce your name? Misuk?
Yeah, that's me. Hello,
Oh, hi.
everyone.
Hello, glad you're here. That's great.
Just lost Matt.
Uh-oh,
Hope he comes back. He's an Allegan guy too.
okay. 13, 14. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Should we start introductions?
Why don't we?
Okay. Oh, Lisa.
There's Lisa.
Give her just a second to get on. Hi, Lisa. All right, friends. We will go ahead and get started with our meeting today. Before we do introductions, though, I would love to say a word of prayer to get us centered. So would you join me in a word of prayer? Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for your love. We thank you for the day that you've given us and the opportunity to gather as believers from all over the place to listen and learn and grow with each other. And so God, I ask that you enter into this space and guide our thoughts and guide this conversation. God, we love you. Amen. So we're really glad that you joined us today. We are going to be talking about what Fresh Expressions is. And Roger Bird and I have been working quite a bit with Fresh Expressions and trying new things on our end. And we thought it'd be really great if we could gather some people in a room and kind of have a conversation about what that's looked like for us, and then have some time for you to ask questions and kind of have some practical next steps to do Fresh Expressions in a way that feels comfortable for you. And so that's why you're here today. So I would love if we could each just say our name and where we are from, just to kind of get us acquainted with each other. And then maybe we'll have the leaders go first, and then I'll just start calling out people's names that I wrote down, if that's all right with everyone. So I'll go first. Obviously, my name is Rachel, as you can see on my screen. I work for Harbor Churches and currently am a pastor in Wayland, Michigan. Roger, do you want to go?
I am Roger Bird, and I am a pastor in Allegan, Michigan.
Awesome. And John.
John Byer. I serve as a multiplication pastor, location pastor at Grace Ann Arbor. and also work as one of the church multiplication catalysts with the Great Lakes City classes.
Thank you, John. And last but not least, Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Ellenboss. I'm at Harbor Churches where I'm the senior pastor. And then like John, I also serve the classes as a church multiplication classes. That would be the classes of the city classes. And I'm in Grand Rapids area. So.
Thank you, Tom. All right, Carl, I'll have you go next.
Yes, ma'am. My name's Carl Smith and I'm with Trinity Reformed Church in Grand Haven. And I serve as an elder on the board.
Awesome. Luann.
I'm Luann Smith from Elegant and from the Bridge.
Awesome. Sarah.
Trying to unmute. Sarah Lindstrom, I'm the chaplain at the Allegan County Correction Center, as well as pastor of Rectified Church in Allegan as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Adrian.
All right, my name is Adrian Balsos. I'm originally from Brazil, but I'm serving the New Hope Reformed Church in Mississauga, Ontario. And I'm also serving our classes here with the church multiplication team.
Awesome. Thank you. Drew.
Yeah, I'm Drew Peterson. I'm the associate pastor at Faith Reformed Church in Traverse City.
Awesome. Thank you, Drew. Let's see, Marcos.
Hi, Marcos Lucchesi, member of New Hope Reformed Church in Toronto area, Mississauga, Toronto area. I'm elder at the church.
Great. Thank you. Matt Rose.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt over on the northeast side of Grand Rapids, working at a little church called Aberdeen.
Awesome. Yakub.
Hello, everyone. This is Yakub Gurung, originally from Nepal. Right now, pastor at Nepali speaking community church in Grand Rapids.
Great. And Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris, and I pastor Elevation. It's a church plant in the city of Vision and Progress, Wyoming, Michigan.
Awesome. And Jeff.
Hi, Jeff Vootberg from Allegan. Hang out with Roger from time to time.
Awesome. Teresa.
Hi, I'm Teresa Clairbout. I'm with Bethany Reformed Church in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and I serve on the outreach committee.
Very nice. Sue.
I'm Sue Johnson from Allegan, and I attend the Bridge.
Thank you. Matt Adams.
Hi, my name's Matt Adams from Allegan. Sorry, just joining in.
You're great. Thanks for joining. Miss Suk.
Hello, everybody. My name is Miss Suk Hong. I serve as an elder at the Grace Ann Arbor, same church as Pastor John.
Awesome. Thank you. Lisa.
Hey, I'm Lisa DeKreiger from the Bridge in Allegan, one of the pastors there.
Thank you. And Paul.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Dietz. I also attend the Bridge.
Great. And hey, Ross. You there?
Hi there.
Hey.
Sorry, I'm driving, so.
Oh, you're totally fine. You're good. We're just kind of introducing ourselves, who we are and where we work and are from.
Gotcha. So Ross Graveling from Grand Rapids, a part of Elevation Church in Wyoming.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. So this is how this meeting is going to go. I'm just going to share a little bit of my story.
Dan Byer didn't go, Rachel.
Oh.
Did I miss that?
Dan, I missed you. I didn't even see you come on. I'm so sorry, Dan. Go
It's
for
okay.
it.
I had a power outage for like 2 seconds, but it caused everything to have to reset. So I had to wait for the router to come up before I could join. So Dan Byer, Gun Lake Community Church, and part of a Fresh Expressions cohort with Roger. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
That's great. Thank you, Dan. So now I think I got everybody now, hopefully. Yeah. So I'm just going to talk for just a few minutes to share a little bit about my story and why I love Fresh Expressions. And then Roger Bird is going to share a little bit about his story and why he loves Fresh Expressions. And then John and Tom are going to come in at the end and just kind of cast some vision for and on behalf of the RCA. And then we'll have time for questions after that. Sound good? Thumbs up? Yep. Okay. All right. So a little bit about my story. I have worked for Harbor Churches for, I don't know, how long, Tom? Like 7, 8 years? Long time. I don't know. Anyway, I worked at South Harbor Church in Byron Center for several years. And South Harbor is kind of like a regional church. We have people from Byron Center, Granville, Wyoming, Hudsonville. It's just kind of like this, yeah, it's a central location for a lot of people in a lot of different communities. And in that space, I was the pastor of discipleship. And so I spent a lot of time engaging in people's lives and trying to figure out what is the way in which South Harbor Church can be good news to all these neighborhoods and help people learn how to be disciples and be discipled. And in that process, Harbor Churches had gone through 3DM training. And through the 3DM training, we launched missional communities in our campus and other campuses within Harbor Churches. And I just really fell in love with what it was. We started with 2 families in the basement of a house, eating meals together, giving thanks together, praying together. And then that grew to 4 families, and then it grew to 6 families. And then we decided it was time to multiply. So then my husband and I opened up our home and we launched a missional community. And then eventually we had several missional communities that were happening. And it was just this really beautiful expression of church. I fell in love with it. I then, after I kind of stepped away from my role at South Harbor Church, really invested in what it would look like to take a missional community and plant a church with that type of model. So we started dabbling in what that might look like, and hence came Wayland Harbor. We launched Wayland Harbor Church through the strategy of launching several missional communities that would meet in people's homes, eat together, pray together, do a discovery Bible study together, which is a tool that we use to read scripture and wrestle with scripture together. And then we would come together corporately as several missional communities and have a service together. That model was the model that we just were kind of creatively thinking about. And then the pandemic happened and we could no longer do those things. And I was racing to figure out what could we do to get things going. And in the midst of that, I happened upon a Fresh Expressions cohort that I could attend and learn how to do house church through different means. And then also in that, Tom Ellenboss invited me into a 6-month cohort on microchurch. And so over the past year, I have been in several different classes and arenas on learning how to plant via tiny. And we eat together, we pray together, we give thanks together, we wrestle with scripture together. We have the sacraments, so we offer baptisms, we have communion together. So this is just this new way of doing church. And yet, as we all know, this is nothing new. And so we're just kind of going back to some ancient ways, ancient practices of being the good news and helping people find their way back to God. And so I have a lot more to my story to tell, but for the sake of time, I'm going to pass it on to Roger. And Roger's going to share more about statistics and why on a more practical and maybe theological level, this matters to so many of us.
Thanks, Rachel. We have just begun this journey this summer with Fresh Expressions. Just to kind of give you a little bit of my context, in September, I started I started this Dinner Church School of Leadership graduate certificate program. That's a lot of words, but it's a program to help us learn how to lead Dinner Church and the theology behind it, because as Verlin Fosner says, Dinner Church is not a program, it is a theology. And also, as Dan said, I just started the Fresh Expressions Activate cohort with both he and Sarah. We're in the same cohort. And so I did that because I want to have a broader understanding of Fresh Expressions. And I apologize, I was going to have slides, but I'm having some issues with letting my slides happen. I'm gonna play it through here. Yeah, I could do that. Does that work for everybody?
Looks good.
So Fresh Expressions is a movement that started in the UK. This is just a little background information. It started in the UK back in 2004-ish. The phrase Fresh Expression comes out of the Anglican commitment description that says that we commit to delivering the gospel afresh to each new generation. So it started there, grew, and then eventually came to the US back in 2010. And so the definition, kind of the general definition of what Fresh Expressions is that it's a movement that's committed to being the church differently, primarily for the benefit of those who are not yet part of the church. And so the key there is that it's primarily for the benefit of those who aren't in church yet. So it can be uncomfortable for church people. It's not always exactly how we would like it to be, but we want to do things differently to reach those people that aren't here yet. And I'm guessing for the majority of us, we want to reach people for Jesus. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're giving up an hour on Thursday. That's why a lot of us do this full time. That's why the rest of you are committed to doing it without being paid, probably a lot of hours. So we at the Bridge, we feel the same way. We want to reach people for Jesus. And when we planted the Bridge 12 years ago, the group of us that planted, our plan was that we were going to be a different church because we wanted to reach people that weren't going to come to church. And so we were going to be a missional church. That was the plan, missional, right? Because that's the buzzword, and that's how we are supposed to do it. And we wanted to be a church that was known as that church that helps people. And that's really what we became around town. We painted houses and we built handicap ramps and we repaired roofs and doors and windows and we fed people for years. And people were grateful, and it was good for them to see the church helping people. But no one that we knew of, I think this is probably true, my Bridge people can correct me. I don't think anybody that we knew of came to know Jesus because of what we were doing. And so during kind of those years, we also started a thing called the Weenie Wagon, which we all just love to say. But we got a big kind of food wagon and started to feed families during the summer when kids didn't have their paid school lunch, free school lunch. And we served literally thousands of meals to families in Allegan over 3 years, which was a wonderful thing. And it was a good thing, and I wouldn't change that. But no one that I know of came to know Jesus. No one had their life transformed because of it. We were bringing the kingdom, I think, because we would say in the kingdom, there's no hungry children. And so we need to do something about that. And we did, but lives weren't being changed. And when I say that, please hear, I mean, I know some of you don't know me, like we're not talking about notches on our belt. Right? We don't care about that. We're saying that we love people. We love broken and hurting people, and we want to see them healed and whole and reconciled so that their lives are filled with joy and fulfillment in Jesus, right? That's what we're after, not like, oh yeah, notched another one up. That's not what we're talking about. But we want to see lives transformed. And then along with Rachel and Dan and some others here, and Tom, we got involved with 3DM. We got connected to 3DM, which is a missional discipleship movement and organization. That was probably what, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something. And we still are connected with 3DM, and we love it. It's a wonderful group, and we grew with them in character and competency, and grew in understanding and skills. And we started missional communities, which have been great. And we learned how to make disciples. And we discipled the people we had at church. But again, in 8 years, very few new believers came out of it. We strengthened the body, which was good, but we were not building up the body. And if I read it correctly, the Great Commission says that we're supposed to go into the world and make disciples. And that implies that we're supposed to make new disciples too. And we weren't very good at that. We knew that we had a deep need for evangelism, to bring good news to the people that would hear it as good news. But we didn't know what to do. And I think some of you might be the same way. Like, you're probably going, yes, Roger, we know that we need to tell people about Jesus. We just don't know how to do it. Like, how do we connect to the last, the least, and the lost in a meaningful, long-term way? And like, we're not door knocking. We're too relational for that. We're not doing that. It's not that effective anyway. So we were lost, and I was lost, and we just didn't know what to do. I'm just being honest. And then we found out that it wasn't just us. It wasn't just the Bridge that was having this issue. Statistically, 85% of the churches in the United States are either stalled or in decline. 85%. Of the remaining 15%, 14% of those churches are growing by transfer growth. They're growing from people from other churches coming to their church. So that leaves 1% of the churches in America are growing by conversion, that new people coming to know Jesus, that they're evangelizing well and bringing the good news of Jesus in a way that changes lives. That means, if my math is correct, that 99% of the churches, as good-hearted as we are, as much as we want to do good and to follow Jesus and be faithful, 99% of us in church are failing at the Great Commission. Like, let that sink in. 99% of us are failing at our jobs. Now, that shakes me to the core. And some of the things that go along with that are that 20% of our population in America are churched, and 20% are de-churched. So people maybe that have had connection with the church at some point and for whatever reason stopped going, but still have some sort of connection. So 40% overall of our population have some sort of connection to the church. 60% of the people in our country, 60%, 6 out of 10, are completely unchurched. So they have no nostalgia wrapped around church. They don't go, boy, I sure miss going and singing hymns or worshiping, or they don't because they have no connection to it. And those 60% are not hoping that somebody invites them to church. These are people who will never, ever come to our churches on a Sunday morning. They're just never going to do it. No matter how cool our buildings are, no matter how good the coffee is, no matter how awesome our worship team is, or how great and thought-provoking our sermons are, as much as I'd like to think that they will never, ever come to church. So we have to go to them. And by the way, the good news is that it's not that they're not interested in Jesus. They're just not interested in church. I think a lot of those people are interested in Jesus. So we have to go to them, and we have to figure out how to do that. And really, I mean, Fresh Expressions is the way that we're doing it. So I think in hindsight, the flaw in our missional efforts is that we were doing outreach. We were going out, but really in order to try to get those people to come back to church with us. And they didn't want to do that. Like, we really should have been trying to figure out how to bring church to them. And that is where Fresh Expressions comes in. Like, Fresh Expressions are groups that are connected for long-term relationships. And a Fresh Expressions group can really form around any commonality. So like if there's a group that is training for a triathlon together, they spend a lot of hours together, that can become a Fresh Expression church. Or a group that hangs out at the brewery, which we know there's a lot of those, and I want to get in on one of those. Or soccer families who, spend hours traveling to different places, and they just spend hours together. They could be, or just simply groups that meet together for dinner. So in those groups, in Fresh Expression churches, the gospel of Jesus is preached, long-term community is built, and people are loved and cared for and blessed and healed. And the Holy Spirit is free to do his work in their lives, right? That's what a Fresh Expression church looks like. And as I read my Bible, as I read the book of Acts, that sure looks like what they did in the book of Acts, right? They weren't coming to a building on Sunday morning. They were living lives together in a way that connected them throughout the week and blessed the people that were in it. So it's just something that it's going to take. I repeat this often, and I do it because it's going to take a while to chip away at these mental structures that we have. But because when we look at Fresh Expressions, they don't look like church. But we have to understand Fresh Expressions is not an outreach. It's not a program. It's not a ministry. A Fresh Expressions group is a church. They are church. And we are perfectly equipped, those of us who are in church ministry and lay ministry or paid ministry, we're perfectly equipped to reach the people we're already reaching. If we're not content to give up on those 60% that aren't going to come on Sundays, we have to start doing something different. And the Fresh Expressions is the something different that we're starting to do. And this group, we're hoping that this group evolves into this functional network or this hub where we can equip, we can engage, and we can encourage each other as people begin, those of us begin to walk down this journey. We can share this journey together. So we're this is the beginning. Like, we just want this to be a learning experience. But ultimately, if you go, yeah, I want to sign on to this, I want to start doing this. Like, we want this to be a place where we can come and be connected together and be encouraged and build each other up. So that's all I have to say about that. I'm going to try to get out of here. There we go. So just so we know, and we'll maybe plug this again. No, I won't plug this again. I'm going to put in our chat box, in the chat box we have on your right-hand side, a link to a book. It's a free ebook that talks about how you can start a Fresh Expressions church if you're interested and want to go more. So I'm going to put that in there so that you have it. And then I'm going to turn this over to Tom and John, and they're going to talk about what church planning looks like from our classes perspective and the RCA perspective, since that's where a lot of us are from. So Tom and John, take it away.
Hey, John, why don't you go ahead and share the three streams and kind of where we're at from planting as a denomination in our classes, and then I'll talk a little more about the hub and other stuff. Does that sound good?
Sounds fine. So within our denomination and within our region and the classes our classes in this region, we're talking about three different lanes of church planting. And the first lane one, is called Fresh Expressions. That's what we're talking about here in this meeting. We're really excited about it because it really empowers people who feel called, who are working their jobs and are serving as gifted leaders within the context of church, can be sent out to plant a new church, a fresh expression of church. They have a people, they have a neighborhood, they have a place that they're called to go and to be the church and to plant a new church. We also have what we call a classic church plant, a lane 2, and that's when you've thought about church planting or someone talked about church planting over the past 2 decades and beyond. That's typically what a classic church plant is. a lane 2 church plant as we talk about it within the context of our denomination. And then there's also a lane 3 church, which is called a multiplication center plant. It's a launch large kind of planting model. And so what differentiates them from each other? A Fresh Expression is smaller. It's led by a co-vocational pastor. It could be led by a lead elder or an appropriately gifted team of people that have a diversity of gifts, someone who's more apostolic, someone who's prophetic, someone who's more evangelistic, someone who's a shepherd and a teacher. And they are accountable and sent out by a sending consistory. Typically are less than about 45 people, or less than 60 people, about 45 people being discipled. And of course, it starts much smaller than that and can be a lot smaller than that. Discipleship is key. Being the church out there in the community among those who are not yet followers of Jesus is key. And there is resources that we are committed to make available, not to support or pay for a professional pastor, but to support the work of a Fresh Expression in the place, the neighborhood, to the people that they exist to serve. A classic plant is more worshiping of about 60 to 200 people. That is led by someone who's been trained and equipped as a commissioned pastor, gone through that process, or a minister of word and sacrament. And then the multiplication center church is something that you want to gather a group of about 200 plus within 4 years. So I guess I won't flesh those other two out because I don't think that's what we're here to talk about so much this morning. But the other thing that can happen is their gifted leader might start a fresh expression of church, raise up other leaders, send them out and multiply fresh expressions of church, and may end up through their multiplication and their leadership gifting transitioning from a lane 1 into a lane 2 by having a whole network of fresh expressions of church. So I'll stop there and I'll let Tom pick it up. He can add anything he wants to what I shared and take it from there.
Good, thanks, John. I'm going to share a bit of personal stuff and dovetail on some of the stuff that the other three already shared. But for me, Roger shared some statistics there that have been very impactful for me over the years. I've been pretty involved with the exponential community and the New Thing Network, and some of the stuff around the different kinds of churches has really rocked the planting community. And so, in my involvement with New Thing, with Exponential and their multipliers community, they've really asked the question, boy, if we have all these American churches that are large and doing, all these different kinds of things, but they're not actually multiplying new churches, new disciples, even new believers, so that, and the number Roger gave you, 1%, if you talk to the people who did that research, they'll tell you it was actually less than 1%. They could not find what they would call a movement of rapid reproduction in the United States at all. Ralph Moore would probably be the only one that they pointed to in his microchurch movement, but found that there were places in India and Africa and in other places where there were these sort of rapid movements of multiplication that were reaching lost people in a dramatic way. So if you don't know me, I happen to lead a large multi-site network of churches, and I'll use the language of prevailing churches because it's the prevailing church model in the United States. And though I lead that, and I still believe there's an important place for it, I know that its effectiveness in terms of evangelism and good discipleship and multiplication is actually not great. In fact, it's very poor. So one of the things that I've been working on the last several years is saying, well, I'm not going to walk away from that model, but I do want to try to out of that model to use some of the resources from that model to support some other things that are happening out there. I, like some of you, those of us who are a little bit older, will remember the emergent movement and the emergent churches in the late 90s and early 2000s, which tried to get at some very similar things that we're talking about right now. And that movement, in some senses, the church, most of the churches that were launched out of that movement that were sort of kind of an alternative to the prevailing model, they failed in terms of long-term sustainability. They did a lot of great things, but a lot of them failed in terms of the long-term sustainability. So I think what's happening now, as the emergent church birthed the mission of movement, and now we see this failure in the prevailing model, there's a lot of questions about what about pursuing a different model of church, and some of these are coming out of that, and a lot of great people are asking questions about sustainability and long-term support and the actual multiplication. And so we've been using the language of fresh expressions. You may have already heard the word microchurch. There's a lot of people who are around this. So dinner church, fresh expressions, microchurch, Tampa Underground, Kansas City Underground, Jeff Vanderstelt and the Soma community, even the 3DM movement and the mission and missional communities. These are all, I would say, different kind of organizations or groups of people trying to get at some of the same thing and trying to say, like, let's deconstruct the prevailing model. I, for one, don't think we have to kill the prevailing model. I think we have to create an alternative to it. And I would love to do that in partnership together. So one of the things I would love to see happen, a friend of mine is a part of the Kansas City Underground microchurch movement, and they use this language of having a missionary on every street and an expression of microchurch in every neighborhood. And I love that language. I think that's kind of, regardless of which stream you get caught in, you know, if it's Soma or 3DM or Fresh Expressions or Dinner Church or, you know, whatever, that doesn't matter so much. What we care about is the bottom line of a missionary in every street and an expression of the church in every neighborhood. It doesn't even have to be an expression of microchurch, but an expression of church that is meeting people where they're at and helping them to draw closer to God through Jesus. That's what we all want. So, you know, as Rachel said, you know, we're returning to some of the ancient paths, some of the ancient ways, you know, going back to the early church and saying, you know what they did? They actually went household to household, person to person, and heart to heart. And one of the things that the prevailing model of church has missed is that we've assumed that a church is a band and a really good speaker and maybe some programming, right? And you know, if you know Harbor churches, that's kind of what we do. And one of the things that I get really frustrated with, that I talk about a lot, is we can start a church with a building and a band and a speaker and some programs, that it may not actually be a church in terms of the acts way. And I'm working on that as best I can. Yakuv, who's on this call too, has influenced me deeply in this because we're working in Nepal together and seeing, again, micro expressions of church that are household to household and person to person and leader to leader and heart to heart. So John and I are in roles in the city classes to help catalyze multiplication in those three levels that he talked about. And so one of those places is this expression of fresh expressions, micro churches, those kind of things. And John and I don't know a ton about that. So we're learning, you know, with you and from most of you around that. But what we want to do is we want to take our positions in the classes and our influence in the classes, as well as the role in our existing churches. And we want to try to say, boy, how can we create a network and connection of people who are doing this together? Because most, as John mentioned, most of these expressions are bivocational or not vocational in terms of like, the church is your job, right? It's something else. And so we realize that the sustainability factor for a lot of these expressions of churches, you really rely on other people that you can have relationship with, where you share some resources, and where you can challenge each other and encourage each other on continual reproduction of new believers and new disciples and new churches. I'm actually wearing a shirt that has R4 on it. This comes from New Thing Network, which is those three R's I just talked about, plus residencies. And so one of the things that I'm hoping for kind of out of this is to say, boy, who's doing this work? And can we create some sort of connection in which we can share resources, build relationships of support and accountability, drive reproduction, And residencies, another language for that is apprentices, or where we can raise up apprentices who are going to plant more churches. So that's where I'm coming from in this right now, from the classes, is saying, boy, I wonder if we can get some people together. I think my belief is that more movement happens when we do things together, and that we are better together. I'm learning from people all the time, and I hope people are learning from me, and I think that we can be better long-term together. So, we're not trying to get everybody in some organization to pay some dues to make, assessment money or something like that. We actually want to say, how do we take some, like the early church, right? They shared all things in common, and all these people came to Jesus, right? I mean, that's the bottom line, is can we, heart to heart, people to people, household to household, can we share together and go into the world in ways that are maybe different than has been happening in the American church, which frankly has been in decline for 30 or 40 years, and yet we keep trying to do the same things. So yeah, I said a lot there, dumped a lot on you, but I wanted to give you a conception of kind of where John and I are coming in on that, saying, hey, we play a role in the classes, and we want to figure out a way to connect people and provide a place of resource. We don't know what that looks like yet. We've seen some other models from some other people and are trying to learn from those. So with that, I'll kick it back to Roger and Rachel, and I'm guessing we're going to open some stuff for questions, I guess.
Are you doing that, or am I doing that?
I'll let you do that, Roger.
I shouldn't have said anything. Yeah, so we wanted to build in time because this is so new to so many. We wanted to just allow time for question and answer, with the caveat that we are just getting started, and so we're not experts in this at all. We are co-learners, but maybe we've read another book that you haven't read or something, or have a little bit more experience. So if you have questions, I see Drew, you asked a question here in the chat about looking for Fresh Expressions books. Have you been are you just looking for quantity or just a variety of books?
I'm looking for that one specifically, that one.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Have you been to, I'm sure you have, to the Fresh Expressions US website?
No, not to that one. I was double checking. I checked on Seedbed, and there apparently is a relationship with Zondervan. I looked in a couple other places. I could find a couple of used ones, but I was looking for like a stack of new ones.
So you could try freshexpressionsus.com, I think is their website, and they've got a resources page with all their books. So you might be able to find some there. Yeah, Tricia Lystra might also have them. She's got a lot of resources. We can, Tom, do you have her email that you could post in there? Thanks.
Hey, Roger.
Yeah, Dan.
Can I just make a small comment that just connects to some of the things that you guys were saying? Rachel talked about a regional church and how we always see that as people driving in from a long ways away. And yet I think what we're all longing for is a regional church where we learn how to fill a region with the expression of Christ, where people are. And Tom, when you were talking about every street neighbor, different type thing like that. And then I think the other thing is, nothing gives us away more to that 60% than when we're always meeting them out there, but trying to get them to come back here to our central location. Nothing gives us away quicker than that. And for some reason, we all feel that way. And yet Jesus sent them out and said, find people who receive you, plant it right there, and then follow those relationships out into the region and the community that is there. And that's how the church spread. And it's funny that it even took persecution to get the Jews to do that. Otherwise, we just have the church in Jerusalem. But they figured it out eventually. But so I love that this is rooted, right back to Jesus and in the book of Acts as well. And it's just a couple other connection points.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dan. And I also, you bring up a good point, because Tom, about what Tom said, we don't want to give the impression when we talk about Fresh Expressions that we're talking about doing away with the prevailing church or the inherited church. And I apologize if anything I said indicated that, because we still have 40% of our population who it appeals to, right? So we don't want to abandon the 40% for the 60. We want 100%. So Fresh Expressions or Micro Church, they work hand in glove with the Inherited Church to reach all of the people however we can, right? We're going to become to the Jews a Jew, to the Greeks a Greek, so that we can reach them more. And so we are simply wanting to find a new way to do church to also reach the 60% as well as the 40. So just wanted to say that and have that said in public.
Roger.
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
I just want to put an exclamation point on what you both said too, because there's two really important things in the relationship of the prevailing church. The goal is not to get people into a Fresh Expression, to get them into a prevailing church. That's not the goal. If that happens, that's fine. It's also fine if people from the prevailing model go to the Fresh Expressions. That's not the goal. The goal is evangelism and discipleship in this. And yeah, as you said, it's not to get rid of models. If this is the develop of some new models, and we probably need 3 or 4 or 10 new models in addition to that, as well. And I do get frustrated, even though at Harbor, we've focused on a particular model. We're trying to expand that. Part of it's because we know how to do what we know how to do. And so we're going to probably keep doing that well, but we want to try to innovate and find new ways to reach people who are never going to step into the existing churches, because we know that that's the case. So just an exclamation point on what you all said.
Great, thanks, Tom. Carl.
Okay, yes. What you've talked about here today, Wally and I have done for over a year now here in this trailer park. And through COVID, like Rachel was saying, we had to close down the meeting room. But it took us a little while to figure out how to bring everything to them over the internet. Now we hold Bible studies, chat groups with everybody that was there. We started out with 4 people. We went down to 1, and we tried to figure out what we were doing wrong. We were doing nothing wrong. It's just that they lost interest, and then you pick somebody up here or somebody over here, but we've never stopped with what we started. We discovered what they call Rediscover Church, just as Jesus started preaching in his day.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And we're still going today, and we're still going to go with it. We handed out food. We had meals when we had a little small church service in the community room here in the trailer park, and that's what it was set up for. It's a micro church, but it's called a mission church from our own church in Grand Haven here in Muskegon, which is 18 miles away.
Yeah.
But it's kind of basically what you're talking about, and it takes a lot of work. You're right. And you can't walk away from it once you get it started. So with that, I'll let it go.
Yeah, no, that's great, Carl. And that you bring up such a good point. Like, nothing that we're talking about is new. Like, none of this is new. This is all, especially the dinner church, which kind of is my place that I seem to land. As you begin to read the Gospels, like, you'll see this stuff over and over. This is how Jesus and the early church did church. Like, we're not reinventing. We're not reinventing. We're rediscovering, right?
Yes, exactly. And the churches start. When Jesus did his preaching in the beginning, it wasn't like our homes where we've got 5 or 6 rooms in our homes. Those were 1-room buildings, and it was called a home church. And that's what we've planted ourselves on, is doing this as a home church.
Yeah.
And it's actually, nobody knows it's really a church.
Yeah.
It's a get together.
Yeah, that's good. Anybody, any other questions? Any other thoughts? Just good time to process.
Hey, Roger.
Yeah.
It's Chris.
Hey, Chris.
I like the fact that we're talking about this delivery system. That might seem like a new idea. It's really not a new idea, as you've mentioned a couple times. But I think it's worth reminding ourselves that this is a delivery system that we're talking about, and the product, as gross as that might sound, is the gospel, right? And I guess that'd be my encouragement. Whatever delivery method we come up with, that it needs to be rooted in the gospel, right? The personal, that Jesus came to seek and save sinners, that personal relationship side of it, but also as Reformed people, we know that Christ is reconciling all of creation to himself, right? So if the gospel isn't at its root, the delivery system is going to be irrelevant. And conversely, we could have a very effective delivery system that is separated from, divorced from the gospel. And at that point, we're kind of spinning our wheels and wasting our time. So, you know, it's probably assumed, I assume the best, and all my brothers and sisters on here, that we know that the gospel needs to be central to everything we do.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth stating that. And if we do that, then we don't have to fear for power, because the gospel is the power to transform, right? To raise the dead. And so then our message is also the power by which this new delivery system is going to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it might be, it's probably assumed, but I still think it's worth saying.
Yeah, that's good, Chris. Thanks. We do, absolutely. We don't want to become, you know, just community organizations that are, you know, doing community dinners or doing, you know, just making everybody feel good. Although we hope that's a byproduct, but like the point of this is to bring Jesus. Jesus said, "When you're gathered, I'll be there." Right? That's the point of us bringing these groups together.
I do want to point out also that the vehicle in which we are going about this, Fresh Expressions, is a vehicle. It's invitational, and yet I think that there is going to be a lot of pushback. I know this because there has been a lot of pushback. It's not comfortable for people to meet in smaller arenas in people's homes, and you know, it's just so different than what we're used to. And so I think there is this element of yes, it's good, and yes, it's exciting, and I want to be real and honest and say it's challenging. It's difficult. It can be exhausting sometimes, and yet, like Chris said, and then I think Tom said in a different way, like we're planting the gospel, and that's at the root of all of this. That's what matters. And in my journey here, it has been exhausting, and so fruitful. And I think taking what you know and applying it into this new vehicle or ancient vehicle, however you want to call it. Maybe it's a cart, not a vehicle. I don't know. No matter how you slice it, I think the point is what Chris and Tom and Roger and all of you are saying is this isn't just another cool, exciting thing that we have to try and throwing spaghetti on a wall to see if it sticks. This is us living out what Christ is calling us to do, and it's making disciples. We're going to our ends of the earth, our ends of the neighborhood, and helping people find their way back to God. And I think that's the heartbeat of this whole thing. So it's difficult, yes. Challenging, yes. Fruitful, yes.
Great, Rachel. Thanks. Anyone else?
Worth it, yes.
Worth it. Yes.
Worth it, yes, yeah.
Right. And Rachel, what you say, like it's uncomfortable to be in a house that, or, you know, I can't hide in the back, or it's difficult, you know, because there are smaller groups, you might get called on to do more. And that is why it says that we are doing this primarily for the benefit of those who aren't part of the church yet. Right? So it might make church people uncomfortable, but it's worth it to bring others in and let them see the goodness and the love of God.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to mention something about next next steps before we end up people peel off. I think we're not exactly clear on next steps yet. I think the big thing is we want to develop some relationships, and so what part of this is just to begin to gather who's interested in this, who has experience in this, and then begin to. We've talked about doing some. I know gatherings are weird during this time of life, but we can do some Zoom gatherings and hopefully some face-to-face gatherings. And we thought about, boy, what are some ways that we can begin to do some iron sharpening iron and supporting each other. And so part of this is just this is kind of an interest meeting, right? I mean, you plant a church, also need to interest. Who's interested? So trying to figure out, gosh, who's interested in further conversation? And then what gifts do you bring to the table so that we can begin to, if we talk about dinner church, everybody brings something, and we all bring something to the table, and none of us brings everything to the table. So I think that's what's exciting to me about this, is to say, okay, what are we all bringing to the table, and who's coming, and then let's see what God births out of this. So I don't have any specific next steps except watch your inbox for some next steps, which will probably be another gathering, another conversation, unless Roger, or Rachel, you have more information on that.
Yeah, you're gonna go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, so Roger and I were thinking to have you mark on your calendars March 4. We don't have the exact time yet, but March 4 will be our next gathering for some next steps, some practical next steps on how we can continue this conversation.
Mm-hmm. And so we'll, I'd love to anybody who's interested in that, if you want to maybe post your email in the chat box, so just so that we have them and we can communicate more directly. We will share it through a Facebook event. I don't think I'll do Eventbrite anymore. That seemed to be more of a pain. But we'll share it on Facebook as a Facebook event, so you can be watching that. It'll go through probably the bridge in Allegan is what I've been using so far. But we'd love to be able to communicate and know kind of who's along with the ride, as Tom's going to say, and who's along for the ride and who wants to partner. And if you're like, I'm not sure I want to partner yet, but I'm interested in hearing more, then by all means come and learn more and invite others. And yeah, we'd love to journey together in this.
Hey, Roger, is this going to be the final thing that actually makes me do a Facebook page? I realize I'm probably the only one here who doesn't have that, but if that's going to be the main medium, then just please let us know, because.
Well, you and I will talk. So you'll know, Dan, because you and I will see each other.
Yep.
Does anybody else not have Facebook? You don't, Matt? All
Nope.
right. So Rachel will be in contact with you.
Right.
And if Facebook doesn't work, we'll maybe figure something out. But it seems, for the most part, that's a good way to hit a bulk of our people. Yeah. So maybe we're at 1:59. So let me close us, and let's pray together as we leave. So Abba, we just love you, and we admit that we need wisdom. And you said if we lack wisdom, we could come and we could ask. And so we are asking to give us wisdom to guide us and lead us not into temptation, but lead us to the right places, lead us in the ancient paths, deliver us from evil. We pray for your provision. We pray for your kingdom to come. And we pray for your forgiveness where we have fallen short and where we've gone the wrong way. We want to see you high and lifted up, in your name kept as holy. And so we're just doing the best we can. And so we ask, Jesus, that you'd fulfill your promise to build your church, and just let us be a part of it. Help us to be faithful in it. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for giving up part of your afternoon. We will see you in a month. Take care.
Thank you for
Thanks,
calling us
Roger.
together, Roger and Rachel. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, absolutely. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thanks,
Hey,
everybody.
Thank
Roger and
you.
Rachel,
Thank you.
did,
Bye-bye.
did somebody download the chat so that you get all those
Bye-bye.
emails?
Somebody who's recording. Appreciate
You're recording, Roger.
me. I meant to start it, but I didn't. It must have so automatically started.
It did automatically. It's been recording the whole time. So you're going to want to, and if you don't know how to do this, I can do it for you, but you're going to want to cut that first 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
What for?
Because
Roger and I got on early, so
we were,
we don't
Oh, we're talking about Tom?
Did
yeah.
you talk about things you weren't supposed to talk about, or what?
What's that?
That's when we were talking about Tom.
Yeah.
Bunch of tools. I was in a class doing Visio Divina, so I was being all spiritual. So
Wow.
that's why I couldn't come early.
Visio Divina?
Visio Divina, do you know that?
Lectio Divina.
Yeah, Visio Divina and Audio Divina are ways of doing like a Lectio, but you do so Visio you do with a. I mean, it's some people would call it iconography, using iconography, right? But it's basically using art as a way as a spiritual practice. So kind of like if you think of, you've probably read Nouwen's Return of the Prodigal Son.
Mm-hmm.
You ever read that? He that book is a result of basically a Visio Divina, where he sits and like immerses himself in a piece of art and lets us speak to him and ask questions. And Audio Divina, people do all the time too, but they just don't call it that. But it's like immersing yourself in music or sounds or those kind of things. So
hey, Tom, Matt.
yes.
Yeah, I'm hanging out here, Rachel.
Yeah.
You can see I'm.
Yeah. I wanted to introduce you two because I think you two should be friends. So Matt, Tom, Matt.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Matt. So I know about you from Tim Wilson. Is that possible?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, I don't know Tim super well, but he was at Friesland kind of in the role that I then filled after he left for South Harbor. So
Yeah, I think that's how I know your name.
Yeah.
Because I met with Aberdeen about the time you moved into the neighborhood and started to attend there. And I talked to them, I got in some trouble for this too, actually, but which is normal. I talked to them about closing and doing a merger into Harbor so we could relaunch a new church plant there. And then I think you started attending about the same time. Because they told me about you, and that you'd moved. They said, we got this great young couple, and they moved into the neighborhood. They're totally going to change our church, and it's going to be amazing. And I was like, well, I hope so, but that's a lot to put on somebody who just moved into the neighborhood.
Yeah, we've probably been a disappointment then if that was the expectation. But no, yeah, we're kind of back at that place of having all those conversations about how to end things well, but then also simultaneously having these conversations about how do we see something new come to life from from what's come before. And I was really intrigued. I mean, my questions are not probably relevant